Excuse me, Kelly, have you heard how Rick is doing?
Yeah, he should be joining us this evening.
Oh, great, great.
Okay, so we have a few people joining in the audience. We're recording, we are live on YouTube. So I don't know if you want to wait a little longer for Rick or...
Have we gotten his Mullins? Did you get his Mullins affidavit?
No. There was some confusion because he was planning to recuse himself from one of them, so I think he didn't realize there was two Pleasant Street ones on the agenda. So I'll check with him when he comes on, but we haven't received that.
But he's sitting in on. He wants to sit in on 162B, right?
Yeah, that's where that's the one we had asked him to review from the last meeting. But I think he had thought we were talking about 222 Pleasant.
Oh, he looked at the other one.
Yeah, I don't think he realized there was two Pleasant Street ones on the agenda. So.
Well, that's probably what he's doing right now. He's feverishly going through the 162B hearing. What time is it now?
5:01 by my clock.
Okay, why don't we go ahead and get started?
Okay. All right, the May 6, 2021 meeting of the Yarmouth Conservation Commission is about to be convened. As a precautionary measure to reduce the spread of coronavirus, all town buildings are closed to the public. Therefore, this meeting will be held by remote participation. My name is Kelly Grant, and I'll be moderating participation for this meeting. I will now turn it over to the chair.
Thank you, Kelly. My name is Ed Hoops. I am the chairman of the Yarmouth Conservation Commission. I will begin by taking a roll call for quorum. David Bernstein.
Present.
Rick Bishop, not here yet. Tom Durkin.
Present.
Ed Hoops is here. Paul Huggins.
Present.
Ellie Lawrence.
Present.
And Patricia Mulhern.
Present.
All right, with a quorum present, I will now call the meeting to order. I will now ask the moderator to explain how remote participation works.
Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the Governor's March 23, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Yarmouth Conservation Commission is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access and participate in the proceedings as provided for in the order. Persons who would like to view the meeting while in progress may do so by watching the virtual meeting or the live feed on the Town of Yarmouth YouTube channel. You may also listen to the meeting by dialing into the number provided on the meeting notice. Please be patient as we work to overcome any technological challenges. To reduce confusion, all participants are muted by the moderator. As participants are called upon to speak, they will be unmuted. Applicants can use the raise hand button or press *9 on their phone to identify themselves to the chair. The meeting host will then unmute applicants when they are called upon to speak. During the portion of the hearing designated for public comment, the chair or moderator will ask who in the audience has any public comment or questions. Members of the public attending the meeting virtually will be able to make comments using the raise hand button. If you are dialed into the phone number provided, you can press *9 on your phone to indicate that you would like to comment. Please wait for the chairman to recognize you before speaking. Members of the public who wish to provide comment are asked to identify themselves by first and last name and affiliation for the public record and then provide their comment. Prior to concluding opportunities for discussion, comment or question, the chair will ask a final time if anyone wishes to speak on the matter. All votes must be roll call votes. After a motion is made and there is a second, the chair will ask the moderator to take and report the roll call vote. All motions, decisions, documents and letters will be verbally read into the record. If it appears the meeting cannot or should not proceed, then the moderator will recommend the chair request to continue the hearing to a later date and time or until public meetings can resume normally. I will now hand the meeting back to the chair.
Right, thank you, Kelly. And just so everybody knows, I'm going to be taking something out of order so we can avoid a schedule conflict. So I'm going to be calling a continued notice of intent continued from April 15th, 2021 for SE 83-2280, Joseph R. Jenkins, trustee, 1039 Great Island Road, Yarmouth, Massachusetts. Proposed renovation and construction of a patio within the buffer zone to a coastal bank repair and modification to a stairway within the coastal bank and a coastal resource area with coastal banks and subject to a coastal storm flowage. And I believe Bob was in the audience.
Yes, I am. Am I coming through?
You are, Bob, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate your allowing me to jump the line here. I'll be brief. First of all, I'm Bob Perry with Cape Cod Engineering. We are representing the activity going on at 1039 Great Island Road that you just introduced. First, I would like to say that discussions with Kelly Grant and a general understanding of the situation for proposing an expanded patio so close to the top of a coastal bank in combination with the stairway work, I would like to withdraw the patio portion of this project from consideration. And I was going to suggest that with that withdrawn, I can immediately discuss with you the proposed seat and a couple of modifications to the stairway to the beach. And then should you wish, and I think you would want me to submit a plan revised, dropping the patio work from the plan so that you'd have a record plan in your file relating only to the stairway. So I think I'm going to guess that you're acknowledging and you would accept my withdrawal of that patio. Am I right?
That is correct, Bob.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the stairway, we have a stairway that goes from the upland down to the beach. It's routinely utilized. Most of it is elevated very well off the bank. Kelly brought an observation to my attention that it was one segment of it, very small segment, does get close to the bank where there's a juncture between the stairway and the walkway. And there's no proposal to correct that right now, but if there was ever any significant work done on the stair or that walkway, there's no objection to raising that section off the bank a little more. What's before you is a general maintenance examination and some repairs to some of the planks and boards, and the addition of a cantilevered pair of benches at the outermost segment of that walkway, so that's an area where the stairway is elevated perhaps 3 feet above the growth, and there's no danger of increasing the shade to a point where it would be disadvantageous. This is all hand carpentry work. As I said, the stairway is in pretty good shape. I've recommended that 4x6 posts be put in at that location, so they'll be hand dug, just basically removed and replaced where the posts are today with a upsizing of the beam, and then just framing on some open plank benches to allow people to sit there. I think this is a 2-day job, and everything's hand carried down from the upland. There wouldn't be any CCA wood. It's probably ACQ, unless it was of a natural wood, a railing, or the seat backs might be a natural wood, but otherwise it's very straightforward. And all the cutoffs and material will be taken right back up the step, the access route to the work area. A very little chance of doing any damage. The coastal bank's in good vegetated condition, and the beach is quite rocky. So that's my summary of that, and I'm happy to take your questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Bob. Questions from the commission?
Bob, which side, this may not make any difference, one side or the other, but which side on the dock would the cantilever be? Would that be on the, let's see if I got this right. Would that be on the east side or the west? Oh, both sides. Okay.
Yeah, Kelly, it'll span, I mean, oh, Ellie,
Yeah.
it's you. It'll be balanced. And so there's about a 16-inch seat on each side.
Okay.
No, the seats will be cantilevered.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Bob.
Okay. Anybody else?
All set.
All set? Paul, you're all set?
Yes.
Okay. Kelly, any questions?
No, I have nothing.
Okay, is there anybody in the audience who has any comments or questions about this one? Raise your hand electronically or digitally if you do. Okay, I see none. Would somebody like to craft a motion to accept the or to approve the plan with the condition that we receive an updated or revised plan showing the removal of the patio from the plan, and with the other special conditions, including that if there's any significant work done to the steps, that they correct the area that is low against the grade, and any other special conditions then. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved, David.
Thank you, David. Is there? Thank you, Tom. Kelly, would you call the roll?
Durkin,
Aye.
Bernstein,
Aye.
Lawrence,
Aye.
Oops,
Aye.
Huggins,
Aye.
Mulhern.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. We didn't have Rick on yet, did we? No.
No, Rick is not here, but somebody. Kieran, I was just. Can you let Kieran talk? He has his hand raised.
I have allowed him to talk.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I'm not here on this matter. I was just letting Kelly know I had arrived. I had difficulty getting in. I'm not here on this particular case.
All right, Kieran, we'll be with you in a minute.
And for my end of it, Mr. Chairman, it's Bob Perry here. I just want to say thank you for your accommodation tonight and appreciate it both.
Okay, Bob, thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
All right, so everybody, we are going back to the regular agenda now with the regular order, which means we are now with a request for determination of applicability for Ed Shea, 73 Neptune Lane, South Yarmouth, Massachusetts. A proposed single-family dwelling within the buffer zone to Parker's River and land subject to coastal storm flowage. I think we need to change that description a little bit, but that's what it is. So, Kieran.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Kieran Healy. I'm a land surveyor representing Mr. Shea, the builder, and the Campbells, the owners of the property. We proposed an RDA for this project and submitted plans to the commission. When Kelly did some of her research, it was found that an existing deck that is at the back of the building was not permitted, and an existing patio that was at the back of the building was not permitted. We have some aerials that show them being there for between 25 and 30 years. So I'm not quite sure how they got in, but they existed. Our goal is to remove those. In the description and the narrative that you have, you will see that the area of mitigation that we had proposed was much smaller than what you see on the plan in front of you right now. Basically, we've designed this as if that deck that existed was not there, and the patio that existed was not there. So what we did is we figured out our area of disturbance, and we did 2-to-1 mitigation on that. And you can see we now have 125 square feet of mitigation on the left-hand side of the pier and 475 square feet of mitigation on the right-hand side of the pier, for a total of 600 square feet. And we need less than that to be 2-to-1. What you'll see in the backyard is right now is just the darker lines are just on the left-hand side in the middle of the building is just a platform and stairs down to the patio. And then on the right-hand side, we're getting rid of the big stairway that's there. We're just putting in a spiral stairway and pad, which will decrease the amount of disturbance in that area. We are proposing a stone paver for patio on the ground level. As part of the mitigation, we're also removing the shed area that's down to the right. The shed was fully permitted, and we're removing that from this proposal. On the majority of the work is going to be on the building and there is an existing second floor, but it's not too usable. So we're looking to modify the front left-hand side of the building as you look at it in this view, where that square is right there. So the majority of the work in this project is going to be above the existing home, that area right there that Kelly is identifying. And then just one additional thing, and that is that some of the trees are either uprooted, one of them is actually over and touching the building right now. So we're looking to remove those trees and then replant in the area. We figured that we would come up with a planting plan and have that approved by Kelly in-house and go forward from there. Other than that, I'd be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you, Kieran. Commissioners, any questions?
David, I have one.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to make sure I heard, did you say you're removing the shed or moving the shed?
We are removing eliminating the shed.
Thank you.
Okay, Kieran, can you, I think we need to put a note on that then to say that that's leaving.
Will do. Yeah, we can
Okay.
supply another plan for that, yes.
All right. Anybody else? Kelly?
I guess the only concern was with the things that came up. If this had been a permitted deck, it would have been straightforward under an RDA, but just when we have, excuse me, mitigation involved and conditions involved, this would typically have been handled under an order of conditions. So the commission just needs to feel comfortable with permitting this just with everything being included on an approved plan. So there just won't be a recorded order of conditions for it.
Okay, and so Kieran, did you include mitigation for those unpermitted structures?
Well, we're taking out the unpermitted deck and the unpermitted patio, and we're proposing a deck steps, if you will, and a patio. And the concrete patio to be removed, you can see right there, that's just be the continuation of the lawn, and some of the mitigation is going up into that area. So that was lawn prior to the patio being put in. So we're just reverting that portion back to the lawn, and a portion of it would be the proposed vegetative area.
Okay, all right. I guess I'm okay with it then, as long as we get the revised plan that shows the removal of the shed. There's a note or something there that shows that that's being taken away. Anything else from the commission?
Yeah, one question.
Paul?
Yeah, may not have anything to do with our purview, but aren't there regulations concerning the size of the building and the size of the lot that you can only build on 25%, or is that kind of grandfathered or not applicable in this situation? It seems like a big house on a small piece of property.
Yeah, the house at one time, at the time that this lot and this building was constructed, the side setbacks were only 6 feet. You can see both of these match. You got 7 on one side and 7.5 on the other. And the building coverage is, we're not increasing building coverage. By removing the deck, it's a different from a zoning point of view. It's a different, if something's there for more than 10 years, we can discuss that with the building inspector. And this has been more than 10 years. So it is in reality a reduction in the amount of building on the site.
So the patio doesn't factor into that calculation.
Correct. Yeah, patio is not considered building coverage. It is considered lot coverage, which is 70% of the lot.
Okay, thank you, Karen.
Is there anybody in the audience has any comments, questions about this project? Raise your hand digitally. I see none. Any further discussion among the commission?
The patio, this is Ellie. The patio is obviously going to be pervious, but all of this is within the 35-foot buffer zone, and the deck shouldn't have been there in the first place, but now we're allowing them to put something in place and on the in the footprint of the deck that shouldn't have been there. I just want to verify that's exactly what's happening.
When, Karen, how long did you say the deck was in existence?
One of the reasons we're looking to do this work is the deck is now rotten and we're looking to take it down. So based on that, and based on some of the Google, the images I saw, I would estimate somewhere over 25 years.
Okay, so 25 years ago, we wouldn't have had any issue with that, but
Mhm.
I mean, I get what you're saying. It's
Yeah.
not,
Okay.
Hmm.
Just a point I wanted to bring up. Okay.
okay. All right, thank you, Ellie. Any further discussion from the commission? Would somebody like to make a motion for a -3?
Don't move, David.
Thank you, David. Is there a second?
Second, Tom.
Yeah.
Was that Tom?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Tom. Kelly, would you call the roll?
Durkin,
Aye.
Bernstein,
Aye.
Lawrence,
Aye.
Hoops,
Aye.
Huggins,
Aye.
Mulhern.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, Karen. We're moving on to a notice of intent. This is for the town of Yarmouth, 125 Seagull Beach Road, Yarmouth, Massachusetts. Proposed ecological restoration and culvert reconstruction within the buffer zone to a wetland resource area and land subject to coastal storm flowage. And
Okay, so for this one, we have had some issues. We found out this week that the wrong property address had been used when the notice was filed, so therefore the abutter notification wasn't correct because they did 100 feet from the wrong property. So they have requested to continue to June 6th so that they can get the abutter notification corrected. There are some other issues that have been brought up by DEP with the application, but I don't know if you just will wait until the hearing is open before the applicant, before we discuss.
okay, there are things that they can correct between now and then, or
I think there's some additional information that will need to be provided in the meantime, which we can hopefully clarify before the next meeting.
okay. All right, so then can I have a motion to continue this hearing until June 6th?
So
So
moved.
moved, Ellie.
Thank you, Ellie. Is there a second?
Second, Pat.
Thank you, Pat. Kelly, would you call the roll, please?
Durkin,
Aye.
Bernstein,
Aye.
Lawrence,
Aye.
Oops,
Aye.
Huggins,
Aye.
Mulhern.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0.
All right, the next order of business, another notice of intent for SE 83-2283 Francis Lloyd 222 Pleasant Street, South Yarmouth, Massachusetts, to install 2 wooden racks for the storage of small sailing crafts within coastal beach, coastal dune, riverfront area, and land subject to coastal storm flowage.
Okay. So we have John O'Reilly in the audience. Thank you.
I thought I saw him here.
Yep.
Hello?
No, yeah, go ahead, John.
Good evening. John O'Reilly here. I believe the Lloyds are also on the call. They can certainly raise their hand if they need to answer a question that I can't or add to the conversation. My name is John O'Reilly. I'm a professional engineer with an office over in Brewster. I've been engaged by the Lloyds to prepare the notice of intent for the 2 racks. Just a very brief presentation. The Lloyds have owned this parcel, which is improved with a single-family dwelling since 1938. The waterfront along Bass River is about 150 feet long, and it contains several resources which have been identified on the plan. 2 resources I was focusing on was a coastal bank and a coastal beach. I viewed the area of where the proposed the proposed boat racks are as an upper beach. After input from DEP and then some feedback from Ms. Grant, I think that area needs to be labeled as a coastal dune, and I have no issue with that, showing that as an additional resource. The waterfront property to the west of the subject parcel contains a rock revetment, a dock, and a outfall pipe for Pleasant Street drainage. The waterfront property to the east also contains a revetment and a dock. And both properties on either side have very little beach at high tide. The Lloyd's property is not improved with a revetment. Their house is set well back from the resource areas and the river. And they have the benefit of enjoying a beach during higher tides. This notice is being completed and filed to close the loop on the enforcement order that was issued last year. The enforcement order, as you know, was issued for alteration or addition of the 2 racks that we're going to be talking about in a minute, as well as an upright kayak rack. The commission ordered that the two racks be removed from the resource area while allowing the vertical kayak rack to remain. And it was a requirement of the enforcement order to provide an existing condition of the plan of the waterfront area, which was part of the filing. So what we are asking to do is to hopefully get approval to reinstall 2 low-lying elevated racks that were set up for small sailing craft that the Lloyds and their family have enjoyed. They're avid sailors, the entire family is. In fact, they own a very small, they own a small motorboat, but the rest of the watercrafts that they own are sail or paddle. So the racks that we're proposing are not new to the resource. The violation occurred when notice was given to you folks that new racks were being built. And what was happening, again, in violation, they were replacing the older racks with new lumber. So it stuck out like a sore thumb and notice was given. So what we've done is part of our application, we've provided you some photographs and one in particular that shows the racks were in existence in the same area well past 2013. And the reason we know that is the house that's in the background of the photograph was replaced with the house that's there now in 2013, 2014. Yes, that photograph right there. And you can see the racks in the background behind the blue sail. So what we would like to do is try to reestablish those racks. The Lloyds use them for overnight storage of the small watercraft. It prevents crafts from being left on the beach or left on the beach grass, and would require someone to haul the smaller crafts up onto the beyond the coastal bank. I think what's unique in this situation, in the fact that we're asking for permission to construct the racks within the resource, is that I think with the photographs that we've given show that the racks actually do not impact the dune area or do not impact the vegetation area below the racks, and seems to allow the dune and the grassy area to continue to thrive and to maintain its growth. These are open structures. They're supported by 4x4 posts with a 2x6 rail, very similar to the photo. This was a newer photograph, I guess, from last year. So the post would be sunk into the ground and the railings would be about 18 to 24 inches above grade. And when the boats are not in use, they would be stored on these racks. So as far as shading is concerned, the racks are open. And usually during the daytime, the boats tend to be off the racks. So I think that is why you see the vegetation not terribly impacted by the racks. You can see that even in that photo that the vegetation is still present after, with the racks having been installed. So I guess that's it in my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions. And again, the Lloyds are on the call if they can provide any insight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any questions?
This is Ellie. I do have one.
Okay,
In the picture from 2013, it only shows the one that was removed, but it doesn't have the one that they were called on for the violation, which was the one that Kelly's showing or was showing now. And in the meantime, there was another. Yeah, it doesn't show where the two lasers are is where the new rack was put in that was in violation. The bench to the left is bench to the left. And then there was another one over more to the right that was put up after the violation notice was given, I believe, for life jacket hanging to dry out. And I have to reiterate my last remark about the last time we had this was that these boats are small enough that they can be put on dollies and taken up out of the resource area. We're here to protect the resource area, not put structures on the beach. And every yacht club does it. They don't have all these racks on the resource area. I don't know why they need to have the racks if they have all that resource area, unresource area that they can pull them up to. That's just my opinion.
I tend to agree with you there, Ellie. And the picture that was just on the screen, I find it interesting that you've got the racks, but I also am looking at two boats that are pulled up on and sitting firmly on beach grass. So yeah, and I think that, and I believe, and Kelly, correct me if I'm wrong, but our enforcement order originally said remove the racks. Is that correct?
These two, in discussions with the property owners, these two racks were removed, and the kayak rack that is now here was to remain if they requested permitting for it. That's my understanding.
Yeah, but now they're
now
asking
they're
for
asking to
those two
bring these
to be
back.
returned again. And I think if the commission had wanted to entertain them being permitted, we would have said at the time of the enforcement order, you may either remove it or seek permitting with an after the fact filing. And so I think it's clear, I mean, in my mind, that we shouldn't be doing that. So that's my 2 cents on it. Anybody else in the commission?
I have a question, Ed, Tom.
Tom, yeah, go ahead.
It appears to me that the position of those racks encourages foot traffic around them. And this would be detrimental to the vegetation. In fact, significantly detrimental to the vegetation. It makes me uncomfortable just looking at it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Anybody else?
David, I tend to agree with Ellie and Tom that having structures in that area is not conducive to the vegetation.
Okay, anyone else?
The
Kelly,
permit,
oh, sorry, Pat.
excuse me, is the permitting being done for the kayak rack at the same time here, or is that already done?
It's for the kayak rack as well as the other two.
Okay. we did say that the kayak rack was, what would be allowed if it was permitted.
Right.
Okay,
Kelly, could you go back? Yeah, that picture, that was put in after this whole thing came up.
Oh.
Just as an FYI.
What is that?
That's not the same kayak rack though, right?
No, it's up a little higher.
On the, it's on the pathway leading down to the beach.
So-
It's just out of this picture. It's about just beyond here.
Can you go back to the plan then, Kelly?
Give me a minute. Oh, whoops, that was it back there, wasn't it? That one.
So the one that so I didn't even catch that, but the existing, where it says the existing kayak rack next to the two racks that were supposed to be removed, that was the one that was in at the time of the enforcement order, and that's the one that we were saying was going to be that we would allow to be permitted. And what Ellie is saying is that the existing the other existing, well, what they're calling the existing storage rack was actually installed after the enforcement order had been heard. Is that correct?
Yes.
My understanding was that that rack, the existing rack next to the path was installed as part of when the enforcement order was issued. That's what I was told.
Pretty
I
sure it
have
was
no
after.
recollection of that.
no,
Pretty sure it was after, but I would need to go back and check the dates on the photos.
Because I mean, we would have certainly called it out in the order. Had it been there, we would have called it out as being something that if we at the time, if we wanted it permitted, and we didn't. So that would suggest to me that it wasn't there at the time of the order.
If we want to, I can probably check and see what. Sure what images I have here. Oh, I think these were older ones provided.
I think that through the chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I think that, the message of what the commission had indicated during the review of the enforcement order, was clear to the Lloyds in that the vertical kayak rack could remain while the two lower racks be removed. And in meeting with the Lloyds and they really want the lower racks because of the boating that they do. And in talking with them and looking at the resource in the area where these racks were, I feel that the racks could be constructed or reconstructed. And I think there is photograph evidence that does not show that the vegetation is impacted to the point of destabilizing the dune or upsetting the dune or impacting the dune. And that's why, the Lloyds engaged us and we're presenting that tonight. And on the photo right here is I can see that rack in this photo.
Okay, yeah, so I'll so I mean, in my own, I'm just speaking for myself. I'm willing to entertain the permitting of this rack and the upright kayak rack that's down at the beachfront in the dune. I'm not interested in entertaining the replacement of those two other racks, though. It's just my opinion. Is there any further discussion or questions from the commission? there anybody in the audience?
I do have a question, I'm sorry.
Yeah, David?
So just to be clear, the picture we have in front of us now are those, what is existing post or seasonal storage rack, is that right?
Yeah.
And that's being used for, what are they storing on it?
I believe it's what the young lady said earlier. I believe it's to dry out life jackets and towels
okay.
and so forth.
Okay, thank you. And is
Okay,
that, I'm sorry, is that in an area that would normally not be allowed to have something there? Kelly?
Yeah, so it would probably be at that point considered to be on the coastal bank.
Yeah. See, I would like to see it moved up away from the coastal bank. I mean, it's going to dry no matter where they put it. Why have the precedent of putting something on a coastal bank when we don't need to? In fact, being there's plenty of land up above. That's just my opinion.
Well, that's a good point.
I have a couple of comments, Mr. Chairman, when you.
All right, to the Lloyds then. I don't know which one is which, so because you have both the same name on the.
I've allowed both to speak.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, you can hear me. Okay. Yeah, well, just to make a few corrections in the earlier comments. First of all, could you put the photo up of the main racks that we're looking at here? I'm just looking at the bank.
You're not down here at all.
Do you want the images of the kayak rack that's there now or the ones that were there before?
Well, I can look at both, but I'd like to see what's there right now. I mean, well, I'll just start with this.
That was fun. You got it now. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, this is a picture of the old racks, which I would say would be that we felt we could replace with less violation of the environment. And as you can see, what we propose, if you can flick that picture on of the.
It's all in the same area.
Yeah.
Are you looking for?
Looking for the photo that has the racks that we're talking about replacing. And we removed these racks just to clarify. Yeah, that's not the picture I'm looking for right here. It's more a vertical picture.
I'm not sure which. Is it a photo or the plan?
Yeah, it's a photo.
I believe it's, Kelly, I believe it's the photo showing the upright kayak rack with the newer lumber that was taken last summer.
Right.
The ones in the notice of intent?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's what we're proposing.
No, that was the old one.
Oh, there they are.
Okay. Okay, here's where we are. So this is essentially what we're proposing, and we believe was actually a reduction of any of the amount of rack that we had there previously, and that's why we thought that it would be approved by the commission. There are only 8 posts in the sand, which by the way, we could remove after during the months that we're not using the beach, which would be probably 9 months a year. If that was a consideration that the committee would consider, because the these posts, in our opinion, are not violating in any way the environment. We're big believers in the environment. We've been using this beach for 80 years. And the posts these racks were constructed primarily, well, very much with the thought in mind that it would do little to no harm to the environment. So that's the first point I wanted to make clear. And these posts, we removed these posts last summer at the request of the commission. So this photo was taken prior to that.
And added nothing.
But it does give a good picture of what it would look like, what our proposed replacement would look like.
Yeah, so we understand that. I mean, that's, but the point remains that the enforcement order asked you to remove those racks.
We did
Which did.
immediately.
And so again, the point is, I understand your opinion on this, but the commission at the time of the enforcement order said remove it. And I think you're essentially just saying we want to put it back exactly the way we had it. So I don't see why, I'm not sure that there's much more discussion on that.
Well, the point was that obviously it seems to us that we did remove them at the request of the commission. And but with the understanding that we would object to that because we felt that in fact we could show that there wasn't any harm being made to the environment. So that's why we went ahead with. I mean, we did remove the racks and those 8. They're
Yes,
all
you
they
removed
are.
them. But that's what I was saying. Had the commission had the commission wanted to entertain the idea of keeping the racks there, we would have told you to file an after the fact notice of intent. But the commission said no, remove them, and that's why. So with that's the question. It's like the question is whether or not you're perfectly capable and perfectly it's within your right to apply for anything within the jurisdiction of the Wetlands Protection Act. There's no guarantee that you're going to get whatever you want. That's I mean that's the whole point behind the application.
No, I understand, and that's why we did remove it. We did remove those posts, but we wouldn't have applied to replace them or put them back if we didn't feel that they were doing no harm to the environment.
I understand that's your opinion and your conjecture on that. So I get that.
Right.
Furthermore, we thought.
Okay, this is. Can you be?
Furthermore, we thought that the racks were better than having the children just leave the boats on the marsh grass. And we constructed them in a way that they didn't walk around. The former rack, they walked around. So this way they wouldn't mat it down. And in fact, they were low so that if they were small, they could put a paddleboard on it as well. And they could even put a laser on it and they wouldn't be on the grass. That's why we have a long stretch from our beach up to the house that's all sand. And it is, if you dolly, even if you dolly everything, it's still very difficult to get them up. And the kids, they won't take them up if you look at the pathway up. So this was our way of improving it. And by the way, we didn't add anything after the fact because we understood very much that you were upset with us. So we took everything out.
And we admitted that. You're 100% right. That's not even a matter of contention at this point.
I thought you thought we'd added a rack or something.
We did say that, but then we were also corrected. We corrected ourselves when we showed when Kelly showed the picture of the rack being there. So that's
I just missed that. And the outfall pipe that was mentioned earlier has been disconnected. It was from Main Street And they put in a drainage system on Aunt Jane's Road. So that outfall pipe, which would have been terrible for the river because it just drained off gas and debris from Main Street, no longer is functional. That's just the correction. It doesn't really apply to this.
Okay, all right. All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Can I
Okay.
ask one
I
question?
mean,
Yeah, I'd like to make another comment.
Mr. Lloyd, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, so I think the bottom line is that we feel that these racks will cause less environmental, have less of an effect on the environment than if we didn't have those racks there, because it's better to put the boats on a rack than just let them sit on the beach. And there's nothing that's our only alternative, is to pull the boats up where the racks are being proposed and let them sit on top of the marsh grass instead of on the rack.
No, your alternative is to put them on dollies and take them up to the upland area, like Ellie had suggested before.
have you ever tried to take a laser up that sandy path there? The only one in our family that can do it is my son, who's 6'5", and he does it. But you can't tell with all the litter or pine needles on it that's all sand. That's all sand. And we take them up at the end of the season. We do take them up occasionally to clean them, but my 16-year-old granddaughters are not capable of doing it. So we thought this was a good solution.
Okay, well, the idea is to sit there and say, okay, well, if we don't get what we want, we're going to just go ahead and put them on. We're going to put the boats on the beach grass. That's not an acceptable.
Nobody said that. Why?
Your husband just said that.
Well, I'm just saying that's what the children will end up doing. They will tie it to something.
All right.
I mean, that's why our son isn't there every night to pull them up.
Okay, is there any further
He
discussion?
just acts like we're spoiled brats. I mean, it's.
Is there any further discussion amongst the commission? All right, no further discussion. Would somebody like to make a motion to?
Kelly, does Kelly have any input on that? On this?
I'm sorry, did I go to Kelly?
I just had a couple of comments. So the coastal dune was to be added to the plan, just so that the resource area delineations were accurate. We agreed that could be done after the hearing in case there are any other changes to be made. DEP came back with a file number for this and with their comments, which also asked about clarifying between a coastal bank and a coastal dune resource area and requiring that they demonstrate compliance with 310 CMR 10.283, which is the performance standards for coastal dune, and suggesting alternatives be explored for locating the racks landward of the coastal dune. I think one of the things that maybe wasn't addressed in terms of the potential impacts of having these in the dune area is that they can also, they may, during fine weather and good seasons, allow vegetation to grow around them, but they can also be quite impactful if they're in place during storms by trapping debris and encouraging additional scour of the dune area. And they can become debris themselves. And just, to reiterate that boats shouldn't be stored on any of the vegetation, regardless of whether there are boat racks there or not. I think that certainly, we do see indications from property owners of keeping like a boat rack, a kayak rack, typically attached to a dock, away from vegetation, but having multiple racks on a dune is highly likely to have a cumulative effect on the stability of the dune and the ability of the vegetation to grow in that area.
Raise your hand and see.
Are you all set, Kelly?
Yep, I'm all done.
Okay, thank you. Paul?
I have just one question. I'm looking at the plan And I see that, you know, the 100-foot buffer zone and the 50-foot buffer zone are clear on the plan. How far up would the boats have to be hauled to be stored, let's say, in appropriate fashion? Beyond the 50 or beyond the 100?
Typically, it's beyond the 35-foot no disturb zone,
Okay,
as
so,
long as they're not stored in vegetation.
all right, so let's say it's even, so we're talking about quote unquote hauling the boats on a dolly, maybe 35 to 50 feet, right? Okay.
Right.
Right. Thank you. So you don't have to go all the way up to the house, for example, or all the way up to 100 feet. It's, I'll use this word advisedly, only 35 to 50 feet. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so if I'm reading the commissioners correctly, I'm seeing that there's not a lot of support for the two additional kayak or two additional racks that are being proposed. Is that a fair assumption?
It is on my side, yes.
Yeah, that's my opinion.
It's the way I feel it.
Okay, so given that, we're at a point here where either, I mean, if that's something you want to entertain, is removing those two racks from the proposal and providing a new plan for that. We can go ahead and vote on that, or if you choose, you may have us vote on the plan as it currently is proposed. Do you have any thoughts on that, either John or from the Lloyds?
Through the chair, John O'Reilly here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, obviously, I don't think we want a denial, so we're going to get, we'll do something. But I do have a simple question, and I don't mean to irritate the commission. I know that this is the second time around with this property. So, but my question is what is different on this site compared when they rebuilt the two racks and install the upright kayak rack was they were allowed to leave the kayak rack but remove the two newer lower racks. Is it fair for me to ask if the Lloyds remove the upright kayak rack or want to remove the upright kayak? And this is a question I have not asked the Lloyds, so I'm just kind of spitballing. But can we remove the upright rack and replace that with a rack similar to what we have? I think what's being lost is the importance of those racks to the Lloyds. And I just want to throw that out to the group.
Well, I mean, I think the only issue is if you're asking us to consider a plan that's not before us.
I understand that, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if the commission would weigh in if the plan was updated to remove the existing kayak rack, which you've allowed to stay, and then come back with a revised plan with the sailboat racks in place of the kayak rack.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to take a straw poll on any of this or anything because that's just not appropriate. But I mean, in my own opinion, I wouldn't entertain that. But again, that's just speaking for me, my own opinion.
Thank you very much.
So would you like to continue?
Yeah, I think at this
consider
point, we could continue to your next available meeting, and then that'll give us a chance to talk to the Lloyds, and then we will certainly update the plan accordingly, and then and get it back into Ms. Grant's office.
Okay, so that's.
Could I request, maybe don't
Go
see,
ahead, David.
could I request the 35-foot buffer line also? Is it in there?
No, it is not, sir, and I did make a note to add it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Kelly, our next one is May 20th, right?
That's correct.
Okay. May 20th work for you, John?
See you.
Were you asking me? Yes.
Yes, John O'Reilly, that's good?
That's good with me, sir.
Okay, all right, so then do I have a motion to continue this until May 20th?
So moved, Tom.
Thank you, Tom. Is there a second?
Second, David.
Thank you, David. Kelly, would you call the roll, please?
Durkin,
Aye.
Bernstein,
Aye.
He talked to Kelly. Kelly just misled him.
Aye.
Hoops,
Aye.
Huggins,
Aye.
Mulhern.
Aye.
Motion to continue carries 6-0.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you, John. Thank you to the Lloyds as well. Next order of business is a notice of intent for SE 83-2282 Anthony Fiola, 1 Mouthful Road, West Yarmouth, Massachusetts. Proposed construction of a retaining wall with fill and plantings within the buffer zone to a coastal beach and coastal bank and within land subject to coastal storm flowage.
I'm just clearing out all of the old files so I can open the next one.
Nope, take your time. And then when you get a minute,
I think Dan is unmuted. No, now he should be.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
yeah, go ahead, Dan.
Okay, wonderful. Good afternoon, Commissioners, evening. Dan Ojala from Down Cape Engineering. This is a project right next to a little town road there, Malfa. You may recall, and I think the next matter on the agenda is a withdrawal. We had, there's been some illness in the family and so forth, and in talking with the owner and his family, they feel that the original proposal was not appropriate for their site. And so what we have proposed now is a little bit of a different tact where we've somewhat of a retreat from the original one. And we're going to propose on this one is to pull back off of the coastal bank completely and arguably off of the coastal dune completely, and just put a little vinyl sheet pile wall there to kind of act like a knee wall against some of the larger waves and so forth and that may come in the future, but not to try and put the coir logs. The concern being that there's some wave action with the ferries at high tide that they feel that it's just going to be a spitting into the wind with that little effort there. So they requested this. I know that you certainly would be adverse to it if it were out in the coastal bank or in below mean high water and so forth. Even though armoring to protect a structure is allowed, but what this tact is to pull it back. Now, to Kelly's point on her a comment to us, there was a thought that the dune extended onto the lot. In meeting with another consultant on site and doing some on-site explorations, we feel that we've accurately, it's not a dune where we're proposing the sheet pile wall. So what we'll probably request is a continuance in order to talk about that a little bit with Kelly on site, perhaps, and perhaps meet with the county coastal geologist or someone to take a look at it. But there's an existing wall that was buried by about 12 to 18 inches of sand. And actually, when we were out there staking, we actually bumped into it with the stakes. So it's pretty clear that the area that we're proposing this is, highly developed and, had the wall built on it. And I've spun some augers and found a very glacial mix of, there's a little veneer of sand in that one corner. And if we're unable to convince the commission that that's not a dune, we'd probably retreat it a little bit further back to the edge of lawn where it's clearly glacial. But the borings indicate a nice A and B layer profile. And there's just a thin veneer of sand in that one little corner. But again, the owners didn't really like, once they reviewed it and the family looked at it, the coir logs out front. And so they would much prefer pulling back, losing, just a little bit of lawn and having the wall be back from the coastal bank feature. The DEP had a comment that, if you're building on a coastal bank, there's some performance standards. We'd argue here that we're well back of the coastal bank, so those performance standards would not apply. But we can certainly talk to Kelly about that. We've been very busy and Kelly's been busy, but I think with a short continuance, but I'll certainly listen to the board on it. And if you want to give any input for the owner to listen to, we'll certainly talk with them. But the thought is, by pulling this back a little bit, removing some lawn, a little bit of grading, and putting just this knee wall in, that it wouldn't be an unreasonable proposal. And what we're hoping is that the shoreline will naturalize with the left and the right, and the kind of awkward little scarping that's there will naturalize as it has to the west of us, and that this will be a satisfactory solution for the family. So I would leave it with that, and I would probably request a continuance for at least a couple of weeks, so Kelly and I can meet on site and see if we can get some agreement on some of the resource areas and the DEP comments. But other than that, I'd be glad to answer any preliminary questions that you have. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Dan. I guess
Just to clarify on that, Ed, if I may, I did meet with Greg Berman out on the side, and we did look at the resource areas there, and came to the same conclusion, Dan, about it's primarily coastal bank along that area, and there is just a veneer in that corner of dune sand. So I think we're kind of on the same page with that.
Okay, wonderful.
But I did also just get him to review the application and the site, to provide us a report, just so that we kind of had his input on before making a decision. So I certainly agree with a continuance to allow us to receive and review that report. We did talk about the relative benefits of this proposal over the coir logs, particularly as it relates to the pretty constant wake that we observed out there on site from the ferry. So I'd certainly be interested to receive Greg's report and get that to the commission as well for their information. A couple of things that just did come up, which we might want to just think about in the meantime, is making sure that the proposed wall is in line with the current shoreline. So whether it is currently, whether it needs to be adjusted slightly to be in line with the current shoreline. And that it should only be designed to protect the house, not the garage, so it could be shortened in its length. And I think another thing we talked about was at the point that the wall becomes exposed by about 50%, that we have a condition about putting some stone in front of it so that it's not a vertical slope. And then the only other thing which came up was obviously involves a lot more permitting, but might be beneficial. Something that the property owner wanted to talk about is the thinking about a sill along where the kind of debris of the old wall is, that would break up some of that wake energy before it hits the property, so that it is reducing some of those erosion impacts. But we certainly understand that there's greater permitting involved with that, but it is a possibility if they wanted to look at that as an option. That's all I have for now, if we want to wait to review Greg's report.
okay, so yeah, so I definitely would like to review Greg's report. And you said that there's an idea that you and Dan, Kelly, and Greg are going to be meeting out on site again.
We can certainly do that if we need to.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'd like to go out and take a look and listen to what everybody has to say on the matter as well. But if that's going to happen, that would be fine. If not, that's fine too.
Yeah, so we plan to have the report by this time next week, so we could coordinate for the beginning of the week of the next meeting to have a site visit with whoever wants to attend then to review it.
Okay.
It's
all right, and
Through
I'm
the
sorry, go
chair,
ahead, Dan.
I would just say, through the chair, it's a fascinating site geologically because you've got an old cedar forest being exposed seaward of it. There's little bits and roots of cedar.
Oh, is that what the roots are? I didn't know. What the
Yeah, it's
remnants
an
of
old,
them.
like that one in Falmouth. I'm sure it's ice age glacial. It's an old cedar forest coming out because being exposed, and then you've got a layer of peat. But where I did the corings, even 6 feet deep, we had good glacial material back up near the wall. But I'd love to hear his thoughts on how that all developed. But anyway, it's my main point was just the dune veneer. But if an on-site meeting is warranted, I'd be happy to attend.
Okay, and so it sounds from what Kelly has been saying that's the resource areas are more or less as they're proposed on this plan. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
The
Yeah,
only
so I-
clarification, we didn't have a line for the velocity zone, but I think it's because it extends right to the back of the property, so the whole area is velocity zone.
Okay, yeah, I'm good. I'm perfectly willing to. I mean, if you want to do it's a 2 week 2 week continuance, Dan.
Yes, and then we can always continue again if for some reason the report is late, but we would appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Actually,
Okay.
Jay, could you also just confirm, can you just check the mean high water line on the plan? Because when we were out there, the rack line seemed, and it's hard to tell obviously because the beaches on either side are kind of different elevations, but the rack line seemed higher than where the mean high water line was indicated. And when I was out there just after high tide yesterday, the water was above the remnants of the old wall. So if we could just check that mean high water line and make sure that's accurate.
Absolutely, and
It may have
mean
been
high
a bad
water.
picture.
Your normal high water is a little above mean high.
Yeah,
There's
it might have been a little high
semi-diurnal
yesterday.
tide, and it doesn't take much of a wind to push that rack line way up but sure, we'll check that. And I would clarify too that we had a surveyed location from 1996 of the original location of that wall, so that's what we're showing just as a point of interest. Now it's crumbled and all over the place on that slope, so the seaward edge of peat should be fairly accurate, but the wall is just debris now, so that wouldn't be very accurately shown.
Okay.
May I make a comment?
Yeah,
Ed?
go ahead, David.
This is not, well, it is relevant to this as well as the rest of the shoreline. When we were out there, maybe Dan, you could talk to the owners about this. I was stunned about how fast that ferry was coming in. I've seen it all winter, not going much faster with a large wake, which has to help destroy whatever beachfront or whatever they have there. Have they ever thought of getting the neighbors together and complaining to whoever one complains to about how, because we're all standing there, we're all surprised how large the wake was coming onto the beach while we're standing there.
Well, the owners certainly appreciate your comments, and they've absolutely noticed that, and that's their concern about the scarp. That's especially at a high tide, how that does affect it. Point well taken. We'll look into it and see if we can get a little bit of consensus there.
Yeah, someone told me there are 57 or 58 trips during the summer.
Yeah, wow.
Every day.
Yeah.
They, if I can, they go slower during the summer because they're being watched.
Well, we might be able to get a camera with a time.
I do notice in the winter they do go through, especially the faster boats do go through quite fast with a large wake.
And at low tide, that's not a problem, but you'd think at high tide, they could be a little more courteous.
Well, I think they should be courteous at all tides, but that's me.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
And Kelly, if I can, when you do that site visit, could you let me know?
Yeah, I'll send a message to everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, with that, then would somebody like to make a motion to continue this hearing to May 20th?
So moved, Ellie.
Thank you, Ellie, and thank you, David, for seconding. Kelly, would you call the roll, please?
Durkin,
Aye.
Bernstein,
Aye.
Lawrence,
Aye.
Hoops,
Aye.
Huggins,
Aye.
Mulhern.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0.
Okay, Dan, we'll see you in 2 weeks then. And
On this one.
hopefully have that
sounds
report as
great.
well.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next order of business is a continued notice of intent, continued from, let's see, November 5th, 2020 for SE 83-2250, 1 Mouthful Road, West Yarmouth, Massachusetts, requesting to withdraw a proposed construction of coir log erosion control on eroding bank, sand nourishment, and plantings on a coastal bank and land subject to coastal storm flowage.
So again.
So go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, through the chair, Dan Ojala from Down Cape Engineering. So this is obviously the same site as we were just talking about, and the concern of the site is those ferry wakes at high tide and the coir logs just not being able to hold up. So we're looking at a little bit of it going in a different direction. So if we could withdraw without prejudice this application, we sure would appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion then to accept the withdrawal?
So moved,
prejudice?
Ellie.
Thank you, Ellie. Is there a second?
Second, Tom.
Thank you, Tom. Kelly, would you call the roll, please?
Durkin,
Aye.
Bernstein,
Aye.
Lawrence,
Aye.
Oops,
Aye.
Huggins,
Aye.
Mulhern.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0.
Okay, thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Another continued notice of intent from continued from April 15th, 2021 for SE 83-2279 David Atchison Jr. 162B Pleasant Street, Yarmouth, Massachusetts. Proposed reconstruction of a licensed pier, platform, and float. Install coir logs on eroding coastal bank, nourishment and plantings within riverfront area, and land under the ocean, coastal bank, salt marsh, land containing shellfish, fish run, and land subject to coastal storm flowage.
Good afternoon again, Chairman, members of the commission. Dan Ojala from Down Cape Engineering. In the audience are some of the Atchison family, I assume, who are longtime stewards of a couple of properties here on the river. And you'll notice they're very well kept in terms of it's a native lawn. It's not a turf. It looks basically, David was telling me, the same as it has for 70 years or so. The family's been there. This pier was permitted. It was an old pier. There's a rock pile license there. I never really did get the story on that, but that remains. And it's exactly the same footprint existing as is proposed. So it's a pretty straightforward matter. We did mail to DMF the materials. They had a typo in my email when they replied requesting the electronic copy. So there was a little bit of a delay. But they did then receive that and have commented on the project. It also gave us time to revise the plan. There were some discussions about some trimming that was out there. And again, in the Wetlands Protection Act, if you have a lawn that predates the act and has always been mowed, you can continue to mow it. And that's not something that you need a notice for. In this case here, they also, for the past 70 to 80 years, have been maintaining that beach rose, the rugosa rose hedge along the edge there. It grows ferociously, but they keep it trimmed. They met with Kelly on site or talked with her, and I believe that's Kelly's opinion that they're doing the right thing with that. They let it grow up and then cut it down, and it develops a nice firm root system, and it really helps hold that bank together. The coir logs will supplement that on the west side, where there's been a little bit of scarping. As the beach flattens out more to the east upriver, it's not needed, so we terminate those coir logs. It'll be similar to the project next door. The vegetation is starting to take a little bit on those ones to the west. We'll supplement that a little bit, but on this one, it's you can see the detail in the lower right of the screen there. They're set in with duckbill anchors. The stainless wire wraps and the duckbills tend to last longer than the coir logs. So, if we get the, 5, and, it depends. If you get a big doozy of a storm, they might get taken out in 1 or 2 years, but they could go easily 5 or more years, the high density logs. And the hope would be, of course, that, it's all fibrous, natural substance that'll biodegrade. and form up a nice base of the wall there. But if they need to be replaced, they can be, and those stainless cables will be there ready to accept the next set of rolls in the future. It's a soft solution. Again, you've got some nice rugosa rows along that bank. The DMF letter brought up a couple of points talking about the height of the as they always do, the height. They suggest a little bit higher. I did examine the pier to the south and the pier to the north, and the salt marsh is thriving underneath these piers. The sunlight, of course, on an east-west pier goes underneath the pier quite well, and there's a tiny bit of shading on the north side where it thinned out just a little bit, but I think you could understand from a point of view that that shadow that's cast will be there, whether it's a foot higher or not. I think that the height that we're at now, the one to the north, the Dodds Pier is a little shorter, and it does well. The one to the south is just this height, and it does great. David Atchison noted that the whole salt marsh system has really infilled in the last few years. For whatever reason, it's greened up and it's doing wonderfully healthy. And even under the lower pier where it is now, it's going okay. So we feel that by lifting it up to the 5 feet, that's plenty. Anymore, it's really going to look like a skyscraper here. So I would appreciate leaving it at your normal 5 feet. The floats do have enough water. There was a comment they might not have enough, but we do measure 3 foot at low. And it's just a hair under that on the back side of the floats. And in their experience, there's plenty of water under these. And again, it's just the existing that's there. To do any kind of a float stop, you've got to double the number of piles, and they're awkward. This one's a well-designed pier, and we feel it's deep enough. In this manner, it should continue to protect the environment well. The other comments were fine. Beach fill material, equal grain size and slope is fine. So I think that's it. They've got a pier builder lined up to rebuild. Again, it's in need of repair, and if you walked on it, it's a little springy and getting older. Really, for safety, would love to get that replaced this season. If you have any questions, I would certainly be glad to answer them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Questions from the commission?
Ed, if I may, this is Ellie.
Yeah, go ahead, Ellie.
If this is a rebuild, should we have them take that platform off the end so it conforms more with our regulations? Make it a straight dock instead of having that platform that's on the end, because that's seems to be what our regulations ask for, is that any rebuild conforms to what we propose. That didn't make any sense, did it? Anyways, what they propose should conform to our regulations is what I was trying to say.
Okay.
Well, I for the applicant through the chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
So it's a big family that enjoys this, and the pier has been here for a great many years. It is something that's utilized out there for storage and for seating once in a while. We don't meet all the regulations with the length and so forth. This is a longer pier than you allow. It's 132 feet out. Nobody says to go back to 80, I hope. We need the length for the water depth. And by the time you get out there, it is awfully nice to be able to sit down for a second. So, we respectfully request to leave it. It's been in place. The environment is acclimated to, maybe just that little tiny bit of extra shading, but we've got the gap in there. And we really would appreciate leaving it, just an in-kind replacement. Again, if it was a new pier, I think it's a different matter, but this has a long history of being there, and it doesn't stick out much past that rock pile either, and it's just a little bench, and it's really a nice feature for this family. So if it could stay, we sure would appreciate it.
Tom?
Do I understand that the pilings are proposed as green hat pilings?
That's correct. Yes, the we're understanding that the CCA is not in favor these days. And obviously there's big rocks in the area, which, you know, could shatter a fiberglass pile, and there's additional cost. We did offer to make a donation to the Rainforest keepers who can donate. I think we talked about that at the last meeting. And they can preserve, you know, hundreds of acres of rainforest, which of course would have more than this number of piles of trees in them. So we thought in that manner, perhaps it could offset that little environmental impact. And again, the CCA piles have to be replaced much more frequently. These are just about lifetime, extremely hardy and long-lived piles.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
Yeah,
Paul?
yeah. Just looking at a note here, I think maybe Kelly will discuss this. I heard Dan talking about wanting to keep the height of the thing 5 feet as opposed to the recommended 6. So, I mean, I could wait for Kelly's comments, but I would like to hear more about that.
Okay, anybody else in the commission? And we'll go to Kelly.
So the comments are based on the DMF comments. So DMF state that docks and piers can reduce the density of underlying salt marsh vegetation through increased shading, and they did a study of dock shading impacts and found that 4 foot wide docks set to a 1-to-1 height to width ratio resulted in loss of approximately half of the underlying biomass within 3 years of installation. So that's why they recommend the 1.5-to-1 height to width ratio. And as this is a 4 foot wide pier, it should be elevated at least 6 feet off the salt marsh. So this is the new guidance by DMF. So I guess it's up to the commission whether you want to take DMF on its current guidance and require it be at 6 feet, or whether you're going to accept it at 5 feet. I did have the question as to whether or not the section over the salt marsh could be grating could be used there instead of the planks to increase the light penetration in that area. That's the DMF guidance on it based on their most recent study.
So through the chair, if I,
Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
you know, just to repeat, I think you need only go to that site and look at how well the grass is thriving under the docks on the piers on either side, and even this one here. It's kind of a southeast exposure, and what that lets is, you know, the sun rises in the east, sets in the west, and it's mostly a southern, so it gets good morning sun on the shady side. Noon, it's a little bit in the middle. As it sets in the west, it casts all underneath there, and the grass just grows wonderfully under this. And you know, it's really going to look like a gangly giant to be that extra 6 foot. If you look at the one to the south, how high it is, it's hard to imagine an extra foot is going to make a difference. There's a pretty good gap in these. You see the light coming through it now. The grading is nice, but we have to run an extra joist under there because it gets soft in the sun and it can buckle on you. And so that extra joist tends to shade, so you don't get quite the benefit you'd think you would from the grading. So I in my opinion, and looking at the ones, the Dodds and the Gatto and this one, boy, I think with these in the southeast, it's almost an optimum alignment on these, and the grass is doing great. You know, if it's not broken, let's not fix it. Would love to just stick with that 5 feet. But you know, of course, it's up to the commission. But in the past, I think even with the suggestions, we've gone with the 5 as it being, you know, in this particular instance, I would argue that it's very adequate.
I think you make an argument there. You know, you make a good point. I think my only reason for thinking about raising it would be more, it's more a question of, it has nothing to do with conservation per se, but it's more a question of resiliency, and so that in 30 years time, you know, when the average storm tide comes up and over over the decking that you have that extra foot. But again, I'm not real convinced that I don't think that raising it 6 feet is going to make a real difference for grass growth at this point. But again, more of a resilience issue for me. But I'm fine with leaving it at 5 feet then.
Hey,
Paul?
yeah, could there be some elaboration on the, again, Kelly's recommendation of float stops? And I know Dan had responded to that, but.
Yeah, so DMF were not clear on the depth of water, and so the plan shows that there's a 3-foot depth of water at the end of the float and slightly less than that on the back side of the float. So they had just said that float stops should be put in at 2.5 feet. But if they're not necessary, then yeah, we shouldn't really require them to be put in if it requires additional pilings, because that's just going to create additional impacts, construction impacts.
Thank you.
Yeah, and in this case here, the profile isn't drawn perfectly. If you look at the plan view, you can see a -3 and a -5 on the seaward side, a -4 on the other, the 1.4 difference. So you've got 3 foot under that on both sides, despite how it's it's over 2.5 feet. So I think you're good either way on this one. And it's a float stop on that size is tough to do, and it's extra piles, to Kelly's point. So we would appreciate just leaving it the way that it is. It's got plenty of water, and the sea level is rising, as we know.
Okay, any further discussion amongst the commission? Kelly, you're good?
I do have one other point. I'll recap on what was discussed at the last meeting, just so that we make sure we include those things. So we had the donation of $500 to the Rainforest Fund for the use of the Green Hut. We had monitoring reports required for the queer logs and establishing the vegetation. So to make sure the queer logs were periodically covered with the sand, and that the planting, just to make sure the plantings get established. And we had discussed at the last meeting, and I did expect to see this on the updated plan, was expanding that buffer vegetation to fill that gap between those 2 points where there's kind of a point close in against the top of bank.
Yes, fair. I sincerely apologize. That slipped by my drafts person. We'll make that change if we could as a amended plan, but we had infilled that with a straight line. You're absolutely correct, and somehow that got by us.
And if I could just, I know everyone's really busy, but I got a whole stack of plans yesterday, which was too late for me to give them to the commission. So obviously, they've been able to review this on the screen, but if we can try and get them a week before so that they have the opportunity to see it, or don't bother sending me 8 copies, because I can't, all I do is put them in the recycling.
Yeah, now we're going to have another change. But
yeah, so with that change, if the project is approved with the plan update, then I just need the copies for the file. Thank you.
Okay, you're all set, Kelly?
Yeah, thanks.
All right, is there anybody in the audience who has any questions or comments about this? Raise your hand digitally. Mr. Lloyd, do you have a question or a comment about this project?
I think that might be less. Oh.
Well, it's one of the Lloyds, but.
Yeah, I've unmuted.
Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Lloyd. Do you have a comment on this project? Unmute yourself.
Sorry, I didn't, I'm just listening to your meeting. I didn't mean to have a comment for this.
Okay.
Project. I was just interested.
Okay, thank you. If there's no further discussion among the commission, then do I have a motion to approve the project with a revised plan showing, say it was the
revegetation as discussed.
Revegetation, the vegetation strip. and other special conditions. Is there a motion to that effect?
So move, Paul.
Thank you, Paul. Is there a second?
Second, David.
Thank you, David. Kelly, would you call the roll?
Durkin,
Aye.
Bernstein,
Aye.
Lawrence,
Aye.
Stoops,
Aye.
Huggins,
Aye.
Mulhern.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your consideration, and just for the, just to be absolutely clear, we 100% volunteered that $500. You're not coercing us into it, and we're absolutely willing to do it and happy to do it. But I think that's a nice token, and we'll just leave that at that. But I appreciate it very much, and the Atchisons will continue to be good stewards of this, and we appreciate your careful consideration very much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dan. And so noted. The next order of business, let's see, we're moving on to certificates of compliance. We'll start with the hard one first, SE 83-2151 Algonquin Street, Yarmouth. And we have an issue or two that we need to correct. Is that right, Kelly?
Yes, Charlie Agro is in the audience and I've allowed him to speak just while I bring up.
Okay.
Yes, this is Charlie Agro here from Coastal Engineering on behalf of the applicants. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Charlie.
Yes, and thank you. Good evening, everybody. We are proposing, or we have applied for a certificate of compliance for the work that was completed about just about 3 years ago now to reopen a restricted small salt marsh area as shown on the attached plans. The work was completed in August of 2018, and according to the as-built plans and as stated in the tidal monitoring report, the work appears to have been completed within substantial compliance of the plans. And upon completion of the work, we conducted an as-built survey just to check the contouring of the channel that was constructed and the beach as well. And as shown in some of the pictures of the report, the beach really came out very nice. The material was very compatible, and it filled in the old drainage channel that previously existed very nicely in the area. From the time of construction till March of this year, we continue to monitor the water levels within the salt marsh using the tide gauge that was originally installed as part of the permitting process. And the post-construction report that we submitted was to supplement our the original report and basically outline our findings from the data. And originally we had installed a tide gauge just to prove the problem. And the problem was that the drainage channel was too high in elevation so that water wasn't able to connect to, so retain water within the inner marsh area, was not able to flow in and out of the marsh with every given tidal cycle. The only time the water was able to flow in and out of the marsh was during high tides, coupled with storm surges. And we'd see during the winter time, we'd see flooding take place, and then that water remaining in the salt marsh without being drained. And we'd see fluctuations in the salinity of the water due to this effect. And in the summertime, we would see the opposite, where we'd see the water levels drop significantly due to likely due to evaporation, which would cause salinity levels to increase drastically. And I presume that these fluctuations in the salinity are an indicator of indicator of poor water quality, which is why there wasn't any salt marsh, not a lot of salt marsh growing within, or salt marsh vegetation growing within the area at that time. Since the construction, the tidal monitoring graph showed that the rate of flushing was significantly increased. Kelly, if you, yep, that looks good there. This is a graph from the end of the, or actually just from this last March. So this is 2.5 years after the construction. And you can see from the water level spikes indicate an instance of tidal flushing where the water from the Nantucket Sound was able to reach into the salt marsh, and the mixing of the two waterways allows the water from the salt marsh to drain, and then fresh water to come back into the salt marsh. So seeing that even as of March this year, the channel is still functioning and appears to be functioning properly. The salt marsh appears to be regrowing itself naturally, as seen in some of the pictures in the report. The pictures were taken this past winter, which is still the dormant season for salt marsh vegetation. I would believe going out there today, it would look even better than it does in these pictures in comparison to the previous pictures before. Yes, this is a good example right here. Thank you, Kelly, of some salt marsh vegetation regrowing itself naturally, where salt marsh vegetation didn't previously exist. So from this report and all of the data collected, the applicants would like to request a certificate of compliance with ongoing conditions for maintenance as outlined in the report. And as it was originally planned, it's likely that the channel will need to be maintained. Maintenance construction would be very similar to the original construction, and the original construction proved to be relatively non-invasive, and it consisted of a tracked excavator accessing the site from, I believe that's Algonquin Road, from the end of Algonquin Road, traversing the beach above the water line and around the rock groin and to the channel itself. So any maintenance construction would likely be less volume to be removed than originally, because originally there was a large shoal that existed across where the channel is now. So I would anticipate that the volume would be significantly less that would need to be excavated on a maintenance basis. So that's even less time in the resource area, less work required. And as previously stated, the excavated sediment served as a great source for beach nourishment sediment on the adjacent beach there, which appears to be in very good condition. And at this point, if anybody has any questions regarding the COC application or maintenance construction, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you, Charlie. So I'm just gonna throw it out. I get your desire to do an ongoing condition with this. I think personally I would be more comfortable if you're at this point you can still, let's see, are we still in the order? Do we still have a valid order at this point, Kelly?
It's valid due to the COVID emergency. Otherwise, it
Okay.
expired in April.
Of this year?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I mean, my own personal thought would be that it would make more sense to extend. You should get an extension for extend the order for 2 years, which would correspond with your natural heritage permitting. And then we can reassess at that point whether or not we want to go ahead and do ongoing conditions with the certificate at that point.
Okay, I understand the concern with doing a certificate of compliance with ongoing conditions. Kelly had replied in an email to me, and her and I got a chance to speak about it a little bit the other day. And she had recommended potentially doing a 5-year extension, which I think would be desirable here, because that would give us another, let's say if maintenance construction was done next year, just figuratively speaking, and then that would give us another 4 years, and another maintenance construction event could possibly.
Just to clarify, I said, well, my intention was 5 years in total, not 5 additional years.
Oh, I understand that.
Yeah, we're not able to extend for 5 years.
Okay, that does make sense.
Yeah, I mean, the most we can do is extend for 3. It would make sense under these current conditions if you would extend if you would extend your order of conditions for another 2 years, that would be a total of 5. And that would also concur with your natural heritage permitting. So at the end of, obviously at the end of the 5 years, then you would have to get, even if you were doing ongoing conditions, you would have to go through natural heritage and get another natural heritage permit. So
I think-
it seems to make it would make more sense for you to extend this order for 2 years while your natural heritage permitting is still in effect, and then reassess at the end of those 2 years.
Okay, I think that seems reasonable to me. I guess one thing I was wondering if we could potentially get a partial certificate of compliance that would state that the work that was done out there was within compliance of the permitting plan, just to basically certify the first round of work that was done out there. Is something along those lines possible?
Yeah, I was thinking about that because I think the commission procedurally could do that, issue a partial certificate of compliance calling out what work has been completed and what remains open under the order. But I think you would also have to do an extension, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to do work under that order if it's not open. So
No, and I agree with that. I think we would.
So you would do an extension and a partial certificate of compliance if the commission would agree to that procedurally.
That's correct, because the goal for the owners here is essentially to maintain what was done out there, because it does appear that it has been a benefit to the salt marsh resource area and the environment of the surrounding areas. And it has been a bit of a costly process doing the ecological notice of intent and the tidal monitoring work that was done. And the work since then has been, it's been a financial burden. And they're happy when they've been able to take that on and willing to do something good for the environment here and potentially be an example for other projects that or other areas that have a similar situation where you have a restricted water body that has stagnant water that can have bad water quality, which that area of bad water quality could eventually flow into other areas or seep into the adjacent areas as well. So doing a project like this appears to have been a beneficial project to the environment that they've taken on, and they've taken on voluntarily, and they just want to be able to continue to maintain it as efficiently and as cost or with as minimal costs as possible. Which at this point, I think at this point we know that the channel is doing what it needs to do as represented in the graphs. So I'd also like to be able to remove that tide gauge and also reduce our level of or the required level of oversight of a consultant or engineer or a professional to maybe an annual site visit to just inspect the site to make sure it's still flowing and determine if what that monitoring or maintenance construction timeline might look like on an annual basis to determine if it appears maintenance construction is going to be needed or if it won't be.
Okay, so and we can certainly procedurally do the partial certificate, and so we'll go ahead and go with that tack. But I think you should also do the extension then as well.
I agree with that completely.
Okay.
I think that's the route that we will elect to go at this point.
Okay, so Kelly, should we can go ahead and vote for a partial certificate at this point, right?
Yeah, so partial certificate of compliance for the work, the original work completed, and that the monitoring work has completed with the exception of an annual inspection.
Right.
And then a new profile plan before any additional maintenance work is to be carried out.
Okay, and then the request should come for the extension should come for next meeting then?
Yes, that would be in their interest. The permit is technically expired, but is open as long as the emergency order is in place. So it would make sense to request that as soon as possible.
Okay.
I guess while I'm here, is there any way to request that extension while I'm here and while we're all meeting on the topic, just to avoid having to go through another hearing and the whole nother process?
I think the whole point, I mean, we know the reasoning behind the extension request at this point, so I don't think you would necessarily have to be present for that extension request. But we do have to, we can't just grant it tonight because it has to be advertised as part of the agenda. So
Yeah, so it
you
could
know,
be just a procedural item on the agenda rather than you requiring to attend.
yeah,
Okay.
so we wouldn't require you to attend, and you don't have to worry about us not giving you the extension. We plan on giving the extension. For
Okay,
that,
I
for that
appreciate
permit.
that. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so would somebody like to make a motion to issue a partial certificate of compliance with the specific conditions Kelly mentioned?
So moved, Ellie.
Thank you, Ellie. Is there a second?
Second, Pat.
Thank you, Pat. Kelly, would you call the roll?
Durkin,
Aye.
Bernstein,
Aye.
Lawrence,
Aye.
Oops,
Aye.
Huggins,
Aye.
Mulhern.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Charlie.
All right, thank you all. Have a good night.
All right, next order of business is a certificate of compliance. This is an easy certificate for SE 83-160428 Bray Farm Road North. Do I have a motion to issue the certificate of compliance for SE 83-160428 Bray Farm Road North?
So moved, Tom.
Thank you, Tom. Is there a second?
Second, David.
Thank you, David. Kelly, would you call the roll, please?
Durkin,
Aye.
Bernstein,
Aye.
Lawrence,
Aye.
Oops,
Aye.
Huggins,
Aye.
Mulhern.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0.
All right. Thank
Kieran did
you.
have his, Kieran has his hand raised because I think he was representing on that one.
Oh, I'm sorry, Karen.
You're allowed. I've allowed him to speak.
At this stage, I would just say thank you very much and have a good night.
Okay, thank you, Karen. You too. All right, next order of business is for a violation for Linda Preston 00 Sunset Pines, Yarmouth, for an unpermitted dock on Long Pond.
Okay. Okay, I've allowed Linda to speak.
So, can you hear me?
Yes, Linda. Hold on for just a minute. Kelly's going to fill us in with what's going on, and then we'll turn it over for commissioners to ask you questions. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so we had a report of a new dock that had gone in at the end of Long Pond off Sunset Pines Road. So I contacted the property owner. The aerial photos indicate that over recent years, there's been some, I guess, float sections. I guess they don't really float. They're like sections of dock, but have been placed out on the edge of the pond and in the water on and off through the last few years. And then recently that was formalized with more of a structure. So posts were put on the structure. That previous to that, I think I have a photo here. It was on concrete blocks here, and now it's been elevated onto posts. So the property owner, I had requested that the structure be removed until it was permitted through the commission, and the property owner just wanted to have the opportunity to speak with the commission about being able to retain the structure or bring it up to a certain standard rather than removing it. So this is an image that was taken from Station Ave that shows the posts that have been installed.
Kelly, you've got to share your screen.
I'm sorry, that wasn't very useful.
You know you've been on screen on camera this whole time.
Okay, let me show you this one. I wish it would show me the share screen. It's really difficult. Okay, so can you see the photo now?
Yep, we got you.
Yeah, so that's got the where the posts were installed recently to formalize the structure. And let me just go back and show the previous of it here. And this one just shows previously that it was installed on some cement blocks. So it's been upgraded recently. And obviously these sections look pretty new. So I think even what was there was new. I've been told that historically there has been a dock at this property. I can't see anything in the aerial images until the last few years. So it appears to be a new structure that doesn't have any permitting.
Okay, yeah, and I mean, it's certainly the spacing, the deck spacing is a little bit worrisome there, it looks as well, but
yeah.
All right, Linda, you want to make a quick comment here, and then or do you want us to? I can sort of help go over some of the regulations if that would make it easier for you, or.
Yes, thank you very much for allowing me to be with you tonight, and Kelly's been very helpful. When we discussed this over the phone, I got busy and did a little research of the neighborhood, and I spoke with Mr. Mello at the barber shop, who grew up in the house next door. And he said, yes, his father always had a dock out there, pulled it in the winter time. And that was in the 60s and 70s. And then one of my other neighbors before the previous owner, before the current owner now, Robert Grimes, who was to my left, his house faces Station Avenue, because this is a shared waterfront in our neighborhood. There are 4 of us houses that use it, and we all share the responsibility of it tax-wise and everything else. And the gentleman who owned his house, Mr. Ward, Tom Ward, had a dock that he would put in and out every summer. Until he got too old to really do that. So we're all here, all of us on the street are senior citizens, where we like to minimize the amount of labor going in. We've used the dock to access our kayaks, and then my husband put the posts in last year without realizing it was going to cause a problem. Just to stabilize the dock, because it was a bit wobbly, and just trying to make it safer. Yes, it was the dock was renovated and restored over the years, but there were original docks dating back to the 60s, 1960s. So I don't know whether the town has any record of that or not, but this is what I found out from people that I spoke with, neighbors. And then when I bought the house in 2008, there was some usage of a dock, but I was also very busy on the waterfront because I had a sailboat in the Sound for those several summers. So that's what I know about the history of the dock. We would love to be able to just remove the posts and put it to its original state that we've used it over the last several years, if it's possible. But whatever, I mean, we're willing to comply with what your regulations are, and we just need a little time to be able to accomplish that. So.
Okay. All right. So the way it looks, based on what you said and what Kelly's done in terms of research, in terms of looking at historical context, there are certainly times when you see something there. We're looking at one right now, but in order for you, so let's go back to your preface, where if you want to permit a dock, that is, so, and what we refer to as a dock is meaning something that's attached to the shore, or it connects to the shore somehow, and it goes out over the water. Okay, that's your classic dock. If you want to do that, you would certainly have to file what is called a notice of intent. It's a formal filing before the Conservation Commission, and it would require engineered plans that would go along with that. And there are certain structural components that must be met as part of the dock. All right, and that would be something that the engineer would have to discuss with you and put into effect. So that's the way to if you want a dock, that's the way to go about doing it. Okay. A cheaper and far easier process for you would be to put floats underneath the two sections, and you could, if you take it out into swimmable water. Okay, so something more than waist deep, probably up into chest depth water. You could apply to the harbor master for a mooring permit and moor the docks, or the float. It's essentially a float at that point. You could moor the float out in swimmable water, in deeper water, and it would be kept in that one spot. So those are really your two functions. What's there currently, with or without the posts, is not something that we can permit or entertain. But those would be your two options at this point.
Even though it may have been there since the 1960s. I mean, this.
Well, again, yeah, that's what people have been saying, but I'm not seeing the same photographic evidence that shows that.
And I guess just on that, the other thing that would demonstrate that it had been there that long is that it would have a Chapter 91 license, because this is a great pond, and so if there is a Chapter 91 license for it, but typically those would be associated with a permanent structure rather than just the sections that are put out on the shoreline.
It probably was classified as a floating dock, removable floating dock. At least Mr. Mello described it that way. So if we were to have a floating dock, it would not be anchored on the shore. We'd have to swim out to it. There's no way of walking from the shore onto it. It sounds
right.
like.
You would have to get wet, or have a kayak or something to get you across the water. But yeah, you'd most likely get wet to get out there.
And that would be anchored.
It would be it's moored. It would be moored off the shoreline.
Okay.
And like I said, that would be something that you would go through harbor masters for.
Okay. Okay. Is there a time period that I have to work with here?
Yeah, Kelly, have you given any deadline for removing, or? Kelly, you need to unmute yourself.
Doing very well this evening, am I? The violation notice was issued April 5th with a requirement to remove the unpermitted dock by April 16th. So we're beyond that time frame now. So if your commission wants to set a new time frame for removal.
Okay, yeah, so it would be, I think, more than fair. 2 weeks from today would make it more than fair for removal. And then if you want to go through with the more cumbersome notice of intent, you may do that too. You may certainly file the notice. That would probably not get you in the water before fall, that's for sure. If you're looking to be in the water, then at least you could start off with a mooring permit and go that way.
Okay.
So it has to come out within 2 weeks from today, which is the 20th. Okay, May 20th. And then if you want to go ahead in the meantime and seek, turn it into a float and then talk to the harbor master, you can certainly do that. And then at some point in the future, if you want to entertain the possibility of bringing it back as a dock, you could do that by contacting an engineer and having them file the notice of intent then.
Okay, it looks like we'll be running into quite an expense with that, I would imagine.
Yeah, that the notice of intent would be a far more expensive proposition.
What is there a fee for filing a notice of intent?
Yeah, what's the fee for the NOI, Kelly?
It's a per foot fee.
Oh,
So
that's right.
Yeah, I think it's $4 per foot. So the fee itself for the notice of intent is not particularly high. It's having the notice of intent prepared and the plans prepared for it is usually the biggest part of the expense. And also, you'd have to go through Chapter 91 licensing as well for it, permitting for it.
And
yeah, so that will be the expensive part. The paying for the engineer and the plan is the expensive part.
Okay. So it would not be, they would not be engineering it to the specs that it exists right now with the posts.
The regulations require a seasonally removable structure, which is usually made from aluminum and in sections. So it's easily removable and easy to install. So it's not such an engineered structure as it's more, you would just have to have I'm thinking even, have we seen a surveyor do this? Because you can do a surveyed plan and just locate the dock sections on it rather than it being a constructed engineered structure for an inland water body, because it's a simpler structure than it's not a permanent structure like you'd see on the coast.
Because I think I had also submitted a picture to you of some aluminum parts that one of my neighbors had gotten from his son. They were going to try to create an aluminum dock, and I guess they must have found out what your specs were, what your requirements were. So if we just wanted to create something with those parts, that wouldn't be sufficient then, enough.
No, you would, if you're going to be doing something like that, you would most likely go with an aluminum sections, and they come. The sections are usually 8 feet long with a metal grating, and the legs sort of look like an Apollo moon or the lunar module. They had the little mushroom pads on them.
Yes. And there was a flat piece that they come down on inside the water.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. They just.
So we have one of those right next door. One of our neighbors said, well, we can use this if they'll allow us to. But so the 8 foot long parts you're talking about are the actual dock itself?
It's an entire section, right? A section of dock.
Okay. Okay. So there's no way that it can be used as is. None of the parts that we have of this dock are usable now.
No, not the way you currently have it, because it's just sitting. It's essentially sitting either on or just above the substrate, and it's not allowing any light penetration whatsoever. So yeah, it wouldn't meet our standards.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Good luck.
Thanks.
All right, we are now to our other business, and we have a request for alteration of conservation property at Center Street.
Okay, so I sent out the request to everyone on email this week. Am I unmuted this time?
You're unmuted.
Okay. So I will share it on the screen. And we have Jeff Colby, Director of DPW, in the audience as well, and it's allowed him to speak so that he can answer any questions that you have. But basically, this is a response to the, can you see that on the screen?
Yep, we got it. We got it.
This is the changed parking conditions down at Bass Hole Beach, and they've located a parking kiosk down in this area here, and wanted to have an area for vehicles to turn around if they're being turned away. And because of the constrictions of this area, they wanted to clear some vegetation from the conservation property here for vehicles to be able to do a full 360 turn. So they would be clearing, it's mostly large shrubs and undergrowth, be clearing up to a couple of larger cedar trees. And then they would be putting down a stone base to stabilize that area for vehicle traffic. Because it's a conservation property, it is in wetlands jurisdiction also, but it's a reasonable distance from the wetlands, but it is a conservation property, which you are the managers of and need to provide authorization for that work to go ahead, as well as if you deem there to be any wetlands permitting required for it.
Okay. I mean, I read the proposal completely, and I mean my thoughts are, number one, it's like first of all, you're clearing land on conservation land. That's an issue right there. I think the way you have it proposed, you're actually having the clearing coming where you're going to have cars turning around right at the entrance or exit for the trailhead. So I don't think that works at all. I mean, regardless of whether or not I would support the idea of cutting into the conservation area. I mean, personally, there's just no way I'm going to support this. There's other alternatives for turnarounds, not on conservation land, and that's my thoughts. So, if anybody else would like to make, I think Tom, I saw. Okay, hold on. I saw Tom first, and then Ellie, and then David, and then Pat.
And Paul.
Oh, and then Paul. Okay.
I'll be quick, folks. I looked at this, and perhaps I'm in error, but it looked like a safety issue to me. I also thought that that's necessary. We certainly don't want to put the residents of Yarmouth in a dangerous situation. If this avoids that, then it may be well to consider it seriously. The second point that became obvious to me was that it's a pervious system, and we certainly go with that idea. Thank you.
Okay, Ellie?
My thought on this, and correct me if I'm wrong, this whole thing of pay at this beach is a experimental issue. And if it's experimental and it doesn't work, we still have that land that's all cleared for an experiment. Maybe I read the selectmen's thing wrong, but this is on a trial basis for this pay to go at this beach.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
all I have.
regardless whether it stays or goes in the future, it's still an impact. And
Yeah.
okay,
That's my point. If they're not going to use it in the future, we've just destroyed it. I agree with you, Ed.
yeah, I mean, I guess I look at it in the same as, like, we hand out enforcement orders to people who cut onto conservation property, and yet we're supposed to turn an eye and say, okay, fine, because it's the town wanting a turnaround. We should go ahead and cut conservation land. I mean, conservation land was bought for the purpose of conservation. If they want to do a turnaround, then why don't they turn around on the just a little bit beyond the parking booth? There's a wide open grassy area and roadway that's already there, a driveway that's already there. you just make a big loop around using the driveway and they come back out. It seems far less work and far less impact, and it's not cutting conservation land. It's out on the recreation portion. That's, I mean, it seems obvious to me that you don't want a turnaround where it's being proposed. So let's see, where are we going? I think it was David, then Pat, then Paul.
First of all, I agree 100% with Ellie, and Ellie's absolutely right. It was a one, because I complained about this whole idea to begin with. I don't think we should be charging people to go to that particular beach when it's such a good tourist place. People paying $20 to walk up and down a boardwalk for half hours, absolutely anti-tourist, and that's not the way we should be, but that's not what we're talking about. But it wasn't, when I complained, I got back a note from the selectman saying it is a 1-year experiment. We'll see how it is. And 1-year experiment, if they hopefully change their minds, then we've ruined conservation land. So I agree with Ellie. I agree with you, Ed. Thank you.
Okay, Pat?
Well, I completely agree with both of you. And I think your idea, Ed, about moving it ahead, because there is that, just push that kiosk booth further up, because there is that opened area. And there's you could see on the screen that there's also this, like a parking area on the side that a person could turn around without even having to cut down any trees at all. And I personally, that area, or that little trailhead is lovely. It shouldn't be messed with at all. It's a very beautiful spot to walk for our tourists and for ourselves. I agree with you.
All right, thank you, Pat. Paul?
Yeah, I'll join the chorus. I think it's inappropriate. I really like David's comments about the fact that, we have so many visitors to the town visiting that area in the evening and through the day. The idea of creating that turnaround is just ill-advised. And I if they have to try this, I'm kind of torn about it. It's become a very, very popular place. And the thing that I think about also is that it's really the only access we have to the north side of the town of Yarmouth. Like there's some other little places, but this is so popular. There's so many people that come in. I don't think it's going to work out, and for a number of different reasons. So I'd be very much opposed to cutting that area. I think they should come up with another plan.
Okay.
Jeff has his hand raised if you wanted to.
Who does?
Jeff Colby.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Joe. That's where I was going next, because I was going to say I think we've heard from everybody on the board, but Jeff, if you'd like to make any comments.
Yes, I would. Thank you very much. I think Kelly did a great job with like an overview of the project generally, but I do want to say that there's a picture on the second page of that that kind of shows the undergrowth that we were looking to get permission to trim. There's no live trees that would be impacted. There are a couple of cedars, but if you look close enough, they're dead, that could be removed. The idea is when you pull up to the gate, if the parking lot's full, or if people just decide they don't want to pay the fee, they would be able to turn. Now, I do believe you can make a 3-point turn without doing any trimming, but it is rather tight, and they'd have to use the actual pathway trailhead to make the 3-point turn. And that just doesn't seem to be a good thing to do, to actually use part of the start of the trailhead, if you will, for the turning movement. So what we were proposing to do, with the commission's permission, of course, was to do some trimming just to the south of the trailhead, so the 3-point turn could actually happen south of the trailhead versus kind of turning where the trailhead starts. So that's an overview of what we were proposing, just to make it a little safer and a little easier to turn around. But if the commission is not interested in having any trimming done, we'll certainly try to make it work with what exists out there today.
Okay, well, so just a point of clarification, what you're viewing as in calling dead trees, that's important habitat for from a conservation standpoint. You know, I understand it's not, you know, I get what you're trying to do. But at the same time, I don't want to see people turning around and making 3-point turns at the trailhead. That trailhead is there for people to use with the, you know, for pedestrians to use the trail. So to sit there and purposely shove people and cars onto the trailhead to turn to make their 3-point turn is ridiculous. I again, I don't understand why you don't allow them to go. You can move that booth forward just a few feet and allow them a much easier alternative or access to make that loop. But again, it's one of those things. Conservation is always asked to you know, you do it for the good of the town, do it for the good of the town, do it for the applicant. But you know, that's just not. I don't see that as being a viable option. So.
If they are using the head of the trail to turn around, wouldn't that be kind of a violation of our conservation area? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, in theory, yes.
If that's the idea.
And it's, I mean, it's dangerous for anybody to be. So you're, so now you're going to have a crossing guard at the trailhead.
Plus, people are going to have to pay $20 to use the trailhead.
Yeah. Ed?
Yeah, Paul.
The other thing is, you know, there is that area that you're talking about, you know, that's just kind of parallel to the road in front of the big pavilion there. And it seems that they want to put this this booth. It's plunked right. It's plunked right next to a telephone pole. It doesn't seem to be a really roomy place for cars to pull up and stop and do a transaction there. It's, you know, there's cars going to be coming down the other way. So I don't know if the idea is that they want to keep open as many parking places as possible, but I totally agree. I think what you're saying, Ed, is move this whole thing up forward a little bit, and you might have to eliminate a few parking spaces, move the kiosk, whatever you call it, over to the right off the road a little bit, and people can move in there and they'd have plenty of room to turn around. So I just, again, I just think it's a not such a great idea.
Okay, I mean, is there any further discussion? Kelly, do you need a vote on this, or?
I guess a vote would be useful for the minutes.
Okay, so I guess do I have a motion then? Let's see, how do I want to see this? Do I have a motion to approve the request for alteration of conservation property at Center Street? Okay, so an aye vote is to allow the alteration to occur, just so everybody understands.
So
is there thank you, Paul. Is there a second?
Second, David.
Thank you, David. Kelly, would you call the roll?
Bernstein,
Nay.
Huggins,
nay.
Lawrence,
Nay.
Mulhern,
Nay.
Durkin,
Abstain.
and Hoops.
Nay.
Okay, so we have 5 in the negative and 1 abstain. Motion doesn't carry.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jeff. Let's see, next order of business is under other business is a discussion of ways to water. I think Ellie and David are going to be leading this.
We're going to move to the next meeting, right, Ellie?
Well, I can do the Bass River part, which is where all the docks are, and then we can go on to Lewis Bay next time.
Well, if you
Or
have my
seeing
pic,
how
yeah.
we've been
Good.
here for 2.5 hours, we can wait till the next time. I don't know what the agenda looks like, but I'm willing to go ahead.
How's the agenda for next time, Kelly?
We have 2 notices and an RDA, and then we just had,
There's 2 easy
Anything?
continuances,
yeah, some continuances from tonight.
but those continuances should be
Yeah.
just a matter of saying yes or no. So maybe it would be better than to put it until next week or next meeting then, if that's all right with you.
I'd
And,
appreciate it. I just took pictures, more pictures today, and have to send them to Ellie, so.
Okay. Is that okay with you, Ellie? You're
That's a yes.
Sorry,
muted.
sorry. No, I'm okay with that. I think we're all kind of
I was starting to
hungry
get a little
and-
worried. I heard the silence. I was like, boy, she's really upset.
No, that would just be the mean face, not the silent treatment.
There you go. All right, so then we'll table this discussion until May 20th. Next order then is the approval of meeting minutes for April 15th, 2021. Would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes as written.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Is there a second?
Second, Paul.
Second.
Thank you, Paul. Kelly, would you call the roll?
Bernstein,
Aye.
Huggins,
Aye.
Lawrence,
Aye.
Mulhern,
Aye.
Durkin,
Aye.
Oops.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Do we have any other business not reasonably anticipated?
I have 2 things. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate Ellie Lawrence on completing her 8 fundamentals classes. So she has received her certificate of achievement.
Oh,
So we now have,
congratulations, Ellie.
Thank you. I'm going to frame it and put it in Kelly's office.
If I was digitally literate, I know there's a way to do a hand clapping on the screen, but since I'm not digitally illiterate, you'll have to forgive me.
so I think we now have, is it David, Pat, and Ellie are all fully certified? Is that right? Actually, Pat, I haven't received a certification for you, but I believe you had completed it, right?
I have. I'll call them.
Yeah, maybe they're processing it because this one just came through. The other item I have is along the lines of the Eversource comment period for the right-of-way spraying. We just received the same thing for the Coastal Railroad operational plan. This is the one that you just approved the RDA for at the last meeting. So they now have to put out for comment. So a copy of that came. If anyone would like to review it or make comments. And that's the right-of-way, plan for vegetation control on the Massachusetts Coastal Railroad. So I have a copy of that. If you want to me to send you a copy, I can do that. And I think, let me double check. I think that's all I have.
Okay, and how much do when you get your fundamentals certificate, how much more a weekly salary do you get?
They doubled it.
Yeah,
Doubled
twice your
it?
pay, twice your
There you
pay.
go.
There you go. That's some good stuff there. All right, everybody, unless there's not anything else, I say we adjourn. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Ellie.
Thank
Second.
you, Ellie. Thank you, Pat. Kelly, would you call the roll?
Bernstein,
Aye.
Huggins,
Aye.
Lawrence,
Aye.
Mulhern,
Aye.
Durkin,
Aye.
and Hoops.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
are
Bye.
adjourned at
Kelly, before you leave, Kelly, before you
7:29.
leave,
Yes.
am I writing these minutes up for you?
If you'd like to, otherwise you can just put your notes in and give them to us and I'll get Heidi to do it. Thank you very much for doing that.
Yeah, I'll probably make more sense of my notes than Heidi will.
Okay, it's up to you. You can either scribble in there and give them to us, or you can type them in if you.
Yep,
prefer.
it's gonna rain. If it's rainy, I'll do it.
All right,
got
thank
2
you very
weeks.
much for that. You got plenty of time.
Not a problem.
Right.